Hey, good morning, Keith, and anybody else that might find this of interest. Little notes from the trenches this morning. We're talking about 3D printing flex filaments and how utterly frustrating that can be. Probably one of the harder things to do with a 3D printer. Everybody's printer is a little bit different. Getting it tuned and calibrated is tricky, but I wanted to share the notes that I had, and hopefully you can pull some kind of tidbit from it that'll help you along with your journey. If you listen to nothing else, I would say that my number one tip for 3D printing flexible filament is to make sure that you have calibrated your extruder every time you change to a different flex. You should do it anytime you change filaments, period. But if you're not doing it when you're dealing with flex, you're asking for a world of hurt. I'm assuming you already know how to do that. If not, we'll have to do a separate video for that, but basically push 100 millimeters of filament through the extruder using a G-code setup for that. Mark it and make sure that you are indeed getting 100 millimeters extruded when you say run 100 millimeters. I found that with flex, this will vary wildly between TPE, TPU, other semi-flexes and whatnot. I've had to dial the E-steps down as low as like 370 on some of them and high as 430 on others, and so it just really depends on what the makeup of the material is. Oftentimes you've got just different grades of hardness even, so short hardness on TPU you can get like I think anywhere from like the 30s all the way up to the 90Ds, and so no two are the same. Tip number two, don't even think about trying this with the Bowden. I know some people are going to tell me, yeah, you can do it, and it depends on what it is and whatnot, but you can also use a screwdriver as a chisel. It doesn't mean that it's the best tool for the job, and you're just asking to frustrate or stab yourself in the hand with it. I'd stay away from Bowden, get the right tool for the job, make sure it's direct drive. I assume you're already doing that, but I feel like it had to be said. Number three, I find I run a 0.5 on most of the flex that I do, so upsizing your nozzle so that there's less pressure buildup will really help. I know that's not really a standard size nozzle, but I was able to find some, and I actually sell this as part of that 8-pack of brass nozzle kits that I have on my Amazon store. But I do like that size for flex because it still has a decent resolution, but offers a little relief on the pressure. So something to consider. I wouldn't say that it's a necessity, but I've had success with that. Other notes, sorry, I'm just reading off my notes as I go here. I know it's a little bit sloppy video-wise. Slow down, everybody has kind of commented on this before. I would not go over 30 millimeters a second. I generally try to stay in the 15 to 20s. It makes it more tedious and slow, but at least until you get your settings dialed in, keep that speed down and make sure that you can get a print out, and then work on increasing the speed. Obviously, retraction, people have already mentioned this too, but you should be very minimal to no retraction with a flex. That's a generic statement. Again, there are so many different hardnesses and types of flex that I can't say that you can make a sweeping generalization like that for all of them, but I would say generally you want to make sure that retraction is down low. Don't get too hot. Getting your temperature right on this, that's going to take a little guess and check just like any other filament, but I found that when you get flex too hot, it will do something in the molecular makeup on a lot of these things that makes it more prone to clogging. So ideally you're starting with a clean nozzle, and I would err on the side of a lower temperature to begin, even though that's probably a little bit counterintuitive, thinking that higher temperature is going to mean easier flow, less likely to jam. But watch the upper bounds as well. I find that sometimes just a couple degrees off causes it to just harden and clog and create a tangled, twisty mess inside of your extruder. Speaking of extruders, so this is my go-to extruder, the Titan that I use in my big box, and I have found that one, obviously having a geared extruder is huge for this because it can really, push and torque on this stuff. Also, by the way that this thing is designed, the entry tube to the nozzle chamber is literally like right up against the hob gear, so there is not a lot of wiggle room. If there is any mods you can make, I'm not sure what the state of your current extruder is, but whatever you can do to get that entry tube, whether it's PTFE or whatever the material is, up as close to that hob bolt as possible, the better. You may even look at like trying to custom fab something, you know, get a piece of PTFE and even cut a little bevel on it so that it's like really right up against there. I think that'll help you. You really don't want to give that filament any room to move out of line. Also of note on the extruder, your tension for the idler against the, on this one it's kind of hard to see here. I don't know if I can, let me see if I can, there we go. Yeah, that screw's kind of in the way, but there's a socket head screw in here for an Allen key. There we go. That controls the tension, and that is an important adjustment as well. I find that if it's too tight and it's really mashing down on the filament, just those little voids in between, like where the hob gear impression is, lets some air in, and that can screw up things. If it's too loose, it's obviously not going to grab on and it's going to grind. If I were going to favor something, I would favor maybe a little bit looser, so you're not smashing that filament down too much. Something else to think about. Let's see, talked about gear reduction, talked about hob bolt tension, tuning your machine. Everyone's machine is going to be different, and it really shows with flex how what works for one person may not necessarily work for you. It's going to take some pain of guess and check. I know you're already going through it, but it's one of those ones where you're really going to have to get your machine dialed, and make sure you take some good notes about what you did so that you don't drive yourself crazy next time you go back to print flex again and you forgot what you did. Save your slicer settings, write down some notes, put them somewhere where you're going to look at them. Goes a long way. Had I not done that, I don't think I would have had this for this video. So hopefully you got some nugget out of there. Let me make sure there was nothing else. Oh, didn't talk about part cooling. I bring that part cooling way down if anything. Different flex is going to give you different results. Obviously with flexible materials, your layer adhesion generally is a lot better. So, you know, part cooling and finish, finish, as I'm sure well aware, can be horrendous to pretty nice, but I would at least get to a point where you can get a print out. I start with like 20 to 30% on the part cooling. If you're going to favor airing one way, I would say bring it down, just so you're not cooling it too rapidly, potentially cooling your nozzle down and causing a clog. I think that is all the notes I have from my experiences. So I'm eager to hear how it works out for you. Please leave me a comment, send me a tweet, whatever works. If anybody else is watching this and they have tips on how to get their printer dialed for flex filament, I'd love to hear it. I'm sure the rest of the community could benefit as well. Thanks for watching. Meg on.